essentially accusing the president of treason. Do you regret some of the things you have said?
Well, I called his behavior treasonous, which is to betray one's trust and to aid and abet the enemy, and I stand very much by that claim.
You are the former CIA director accusing the sitting president of the United States. It's not a private citizen. A lot of people hear the former CIA director accusing the sitting president of the United States of treason. That's a monumental accusation.
Well, I think these are abnormal times, and I think a lot of people have spoken out against what Mr. Trump has done, and maybe it's my warning training as an intelligence professional. I have seen the lights blinking red in terms of what Mr. Trump has done and is doing, and is bringing this country down on the global stage, and he's feeding divisiveness within our country.
And it was all just a big lie. At the end, there weren't any people around Trump who got indicted for working with the Russian government. Some of the people from the Trump administration were indicted or sent to jail, but none of them were guilty of colluding with the Russian government. So this is the list. Paul Manafort, who got 7.5 years in prison for financial crimes, so that didn't have anything to do with Russia. Roger Stone, former Trump advisor, was charged with lying to Congress, and again, it didn't have anything to do with Russia. Former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, who pleaded guilty to lying to investigators. In 2017, he pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about conversations with Russian ambassador and agreed to cooperate with the investigation. And this also didn't have anything to do with Russian collusion. Then we have Rick Gates, who is Manafort's longtime business partner, a top aide in the Trump campaign and deputy chairman for the Presidential Inauguration Committee. Facing up to 6 years in prison, Gates pleaded guilty in 2018 to lying to investigators and conspiring to commit other offenses. Then Donald Trump's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, who pleaded guilty to tax and bank charges, campaign finance violations, and lying to Congress. And the list goes on, with many Trump advisors and lower campaign staff being charged with lying to authority, financial crimes, or campaign finance violations. So that's basically it. Some of these people had their lives ruined. Some of them may die in jail, just because the Democrats couldn't get over Hillary Clinton's loss. So they started this bogus investigation, and at the end there was nothing. But it was fantastic seeing people in the media losing their minds after this, because they were telling themselves that Trump is a Russian agent, and of course there would be some evidence that he colluded with Russia. But at the end there was nothing, and they can't stand it. Especially was interesting seeing Rachel Maddow barely keeping it together in her opening segment, spending the better part of it on the verge of tears.
You at home for joining us this hour. I will tell you what Chris is referring to is that a couple of hours ago, maybe even less than that, I was standing knee deep in a trout stream in Tennessee. But now it's Mueller time. And so I'm in a studio in the great state of Tennessee. The trout are basically just as safe as they were when I was flailing away at them ineffectually this afternoon.
And this isn't unexpected, since we know that Maddow's show has long used the Russian collusion narrative to criticize Donald Trump, saying that he actually serves Russian interests and not American. And again, someone needs to hold these people accountable for these lies they've been spreading without any evidence. And now they're freaking out because now they finally got caught in a lie, and people can see what kind of people work in the media these days.
This is a Fox News alert. Robert Mueller has submitted his report on the Russia investigation to Attorney General William Barr. Fox News is reporting that Barr will deliver a letter to Congress as early as tomorrow, and that letter will summarize Mueller's key findings. Here's what else we know. Mueller is not going to indict anybody else, and Mueller was not obstructed in any way during his investigation. So at the end of nearly 2 years of investigating, no one has been charged with anything relating to Russian collusion, and they won't be. ABC News is reporting that President Trump is in, quote, great mood, and told friends at Mar-a-Lago that he was, quote, glad it's over. He even hit the links with Kid Rock at Trump International earlier today. And the left couldn't have been more wrong.
I think more indictments are coming, and I think they'll be broad-based, and there'll be a general conspiracy indictment.
There are indictments in this president's future. They're coming.
We believe we may well have a criminal in the White House, and the next step is going to be the Trump family itself.
There was activities with the Trump campaign in Russia and releasing those hacks and guiding them to the states and the localities where they came from. Some of that was Jared Kushner's responsibilities. Some of it was Donald Jr. I think you're going to probably see indictments of both of those people.
And recall, the media is saying that the Mueller report was supposed to end the quote-unquote Trump treasonous presidency. Watch.
So it's nothing short of treasonous.
Vladimir Putin and his associates, somebody has something on Donald Trump.
There's outright treason. I mean, there is no question that what he is doing is giving aid and comfort to the enemy.
President Trump could be indicted and possibly face jail time.
I think this is a potentially more dangerous situation than Watergate.
I think it's that serious. I think it's that grave. I don't think anybody really gauges how imperiled this presidency is. The end is probably in sight.
The end's not in sight for Donald Trump, but the end may be in sight for those who set the whole thing up. Joining me now with reaction, House Judiciary Committee member Congressman Matt Gaetz, Fox News contributors Dan Bongino and Sarah Carter, and former deputy assistant to President Trump and the host of America First on Salem Radio, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. This is probably the best panel ever assembled outside of a Hannity show. So I'm just happy to be a part of it. And I'll begin with you, Dan, because I know you've been chomping at the bit all day, and I can just see it in your eyes. Here's how I feel, because I'm a feelings guy. I want to talk to you guys about how I feel about this. On the one hand, I feel like this delivers a knockout blow to the press and the Democrats who've been saying collusion, collusion, collusion for the last 2 years. And when you couple that with a hot economy and the decimation of the ISIS caliphate, this is a two-term presidency, so the Democrats are going to have to start working with this president and not working against him. But on the other hand, I'm pretty angry, because the people that set this up, what's going to happen to them? What is going to happen to the people that set this whole thing in motion? Are they going to be accountable or not, Dan?
Jesse, that's really a terrific question, because it sets up exactly where I was going to go. I think what's getting lost in this scrum here after the Mueller report and the report that there's going to be no additional indictments, you know, a lot of people who knew there was no collusion are obviously celebrating because the truth came out. But Jesse, think about the damage here. The real case, the FBI's case, was entirely based in this dossier. The dossier is the collusion scandal. That's everything. So if Mueller could not indict and vindicate even one small component of that dossier, all of the players who spied on Donald Trump, used human intelligence assets, weaponized the intelligence agency, have now nothing to fall back on. And one more quick point on this. Here's the key question here. Jesse, when exactly did Mueller find out there was no collusion? Because his whole initial memo and his reason for existence was to investigate collusion. And that begs the question, what is that second scope memo that he got? What does that say? Because I think Mueller knew early on this thing was a big, stinking pile of dog, you get it. It was a hoax.
Right. Well, we know that Peter Strzok knew that there was no there. We have the text messages that say that, Congressman. So to Dan's point, Hillary paid for the dossier filled with Russian lies. It gets laundered through the Justice Department and the FBI and through the State Department. They buy this warrant to spy unconstitutionally on several campaign officials. They throw spies to infiltrate the campaign. And then at the end of the day, once he takes over and during the transition, everybody starts leaking and unmasking everybody. There's a lot of potential felonies that happened and abuse of power from the Obama administration. Are they going to get away with it? Because it looks like potentially they might.
They were getting away with it under Jeff Sessions and Rod Rosenstein. The hope is with Bill Barr as the Attorney General, there's a new sheriff in town. We had 24 members of Congress who called on a special counsel to investigate the collusion that went on with the Clinton campaign, where you had hundreds of thousands of dollars paid to the Clinton Foundation to influence policy. Also, as I think Dan correctly pointed out, the real collusion here were Democrats hiring a foreign spy who was a known liar to the FBI to work with Russians to tell lies about the president to destabilize what has now become one of the most successful presidencies in the entire modern era. And so, 675 days the Mueller investigation took, longer than the United States' involvement in World War I and the Whiskey Rebellion combined. Out of those, we freed Europe and got cheaper whiskey. Out of the Mueller investigation, we didn't get a single indictment on collusion with Russia. That was the underlying issue. I don't think that the president's supporters should uncork the champagne quite yet. I think there will be negative things about the president in the report, but I mean, this was a biased group of people that only looked at President Trump and didn't look at the true collusion that Dan pointed out, and that I know Dr. Gorka and I have talked about on Salem Radio.